In history, he whispered dates softly, mapped battles in invisible air gestures. The teacher skipped him each time. He wasn't on the roster list. So Eli just kept absorbing quietly. During lunch, he cleaned tables, wiped ketchup stains without being told. No one ever thanked him. Sometimes kids left fries behind. That became his actual lunch. When school ended, Eli stayed behind. Helped his dad clean up messes. Toilets clogged, gum under desks, wrappers. Sometimes worse, graffiti or spit stains. He never flinched. Just kept scrubbing. By 5 p.m., halls were empty. But Eli's shift was only starting. He helped wax the main floors, refilled the soap in girls' bathrooms, took trash bags out in silence. His dad coughed a lot lately. Years of bleach burned his lungs. Eli would offer the heavier bags. "You rest. I got this, Pops." His dad always smiled in return. They lived 3 bus stops away, in a tiny apartment above laundromats. He slept on a couch mattress. The springs poked through some nights, but he never once complained. He studied under a desk lamp, taped torn pages back together, read high school texts from dumpsters, made flashcards from old pizza boxes, all while his dad wheezed nearby. One night, his dad whispered, "Son, I'm sorry for this life." Eli looked up and replied, "You gave me a purpose, Dad," then went back to solving algebra. Years passed, but little changed. Still cleaning, still learning in silence. But something in Eli began shifting. He started correcting math tutors quietly, helping other janitors learn English. Teachers began noticing his presence. One saw him reading Shakespeare alone. Another found him tutoring an 8th grader in the janitor's break room quietly. Word spread through whispers and curiosity. One afternoon changed everything completely. The school was short one sub. A math teacher had called out. No one available on short notice. Eli was mopping the hallway floor. The vice principal stared at him. You're always here, right?" Eli nodded, unsure what was happening. "You know math, don't you?" Eli nodded again, heartbeat quickening. She pointed toward classroom 204. "Go, teach until someone comes." He dropped the mop and obeyed, hands trembling, knees weak with fear. But something inside him stood tall. He wrote the equation on board, turned to the class and said, "I'm Eli, let's break this down." For the first time, he led, and every eye was on him. He explained complex fractions with ease, used metaphors, jokes, real-world examples. The students leaned in, captivated instantly. They forgot he wasn't a teacher, because that day, he truly was. When the teacher returned an hour later, even she was stunned into silence. The board filled with neat formulas, students scribbling eagerly without distractions. Eli was mid-sentence, calm and confident. She didn't interrupt, just listened. The principal came down minutes later. He, too, stood outside the door, watching the janitor's son teach beautifully. Something changed in that moment. That evening, the school board called. The vice principal advocated with passion. "We have a genius among us. He doesn't have papers or degrees, but he has the heart, clearly." A month later, things were different. Eli had a scholarship in hand. Enrolled officially, finally a real student. Still helped clean when he could. But now he was seen. He wore the same shoes proudly. Still ate fries left behind sometimes. But people learned his real name. They greeted him in the halls, asked him for help and advice. From mop buckets to chalkboards. From invisible to unforgettable. He wasn't just a janitor's kid. He was Eli Morale's hope. And the world finally noticed him. Maybe you know someone like him. Someone who's always in the background. Who shows up early, stays late, does everything, but stays invisible. The story isn't just Eli's. It's every forgotten kid's story, too. Every child who had no shortcut. No last name that opened doors. No connections, no safety net, nothing. How many talents go unseen? How many dreams die in silence? Not from laziness, but from poverty. from being born in the margins. Eli didn't beg for attention. He didn't cry for the spotlight. He just kept showing up with a mop and a mission. And maybe that's what greatness is. It doesn't always wear a suit, doesn't always go viral online. Sometimes it's wearing janitor shoes. So if you're watching this now, if you've ever felt overlooked too, like no one sees your grind, this story is a reminder. Someone is watching? Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but one day, the right eyes will see. So don't stop walking forward. Don't stop learning in silence. Don't stop believing you matter, even if no one claps yet. Eli's story proves something powerful. You don't need permission to start. You don't need applause to grow. You only need courage to continue. Because every mop can become a mic. Every hallway can lead to purpose. And every invisible soul deserves their day. To finally be seen, he was 22 by then. Still cleaning schools to survive. Still invisible to the world. Still chasing dreams in silence. But something changed that year. One of the teachers noticed. Not his shoes, not his mop, but the notebook in his pocket. It was always peeking out. Worn pages, pencil sketches, scribbles, equations, diagrams, strange math theories. Stuff he'd never been taught. One afternoon, she asked gently, "Where did you learn this?" He froze, unsure what to say. Then quietly, "Just from old books." She didn't laugh. She nodded and said, "Come with me." She brought him into class. Let him sit in back. That day she gave him paper. A clean sheet. A real pen. "Show me your favorite equation." He smiled like a child again. What he wrote stunned her silent. She took it to someone higher. Until Eli solved another question. One even he had struggled with. That moment lit a spark. The professor requested to meet Eli, offered to mentor him personally. 3 months later, something insane happened. Eli took the SUT exams. He aced the math section. And not just passed, excelled. In fact, near-perfect scores appeared. It shook the testing board. They double-checked for cheating. Found nothing. Because genius leaves no fingerprints. Just brilliance, raw and untrained. Within weeks, emails flooded in. Colleges, scholarships, news outlets, everywhere. The janitor's boy had gone viral. Not for dancing, but solving problems no one expected. Solving equations from streetlight study. Solving the myth of poverty. That poor kid can't be brilliant. A university flew him out. Gave him shoes, new clothes, honor. But Eli, he still wore old. Still polished his mother's locket daily. He stood in front of cameras. Reporters asked, "How did this happen?" He smiled, adjusted his glasses, answered, "You just didn't see me coming." His story made headlines worldwide. But to him, only one mattered. He returned to that little classroom, where it all began with listening. And on the blackboard in chalk, he wrote just 3 quiet words. "I remember everything, Miss." The teacher wept. He wept too. Because finally someone saw him. Not just the mop, not just the silence, but the soul who never quit. Not when he was tired. Not when he was starving. Not even when forgotten. He stood on the stage. Not in rags anymore. Not holding a mop, but a marker. A mic. And a room full watching. Some had mocked him before. Some had stepped over him. Now they clapped for him. Not because he danced, but because he taught. It wasn't a concert. It was a lecture hall, a conference on education equity. And he was the keynote. The janitor's son now professor. Pain, he said gently, teaches. Not just math or science, but humanity, resilience, hope, purpose. Somewhere in the back row, an old man wiped tears. It was the school guard who once told him, "Leave," who once kicked him out, who now whispered, "Forgive me." Eli just nodded, smiling softly. After the talk ended, students lined up for autographs, but he excused himself quietly. He had somewhere to go, somewhere he hadn't visited in years. He walked alone that evening, through streets that once ignored him, past shops that never welcomed him, to a hill behind town, to a small unmarked grave. He knelt down, trembling slightly, the city lights behind him, the wind cold on skin, but his heart was burning. He placed a rose down. "Mom," his voice cracked gently, "I did what you said. You told me I mattered, even when I felt invisible, even when I chose bread." He closed his eyes slowly, and for the first time, the silence didn't ache anymore. It comforted, wrapped him whole, like she never left. Years passed after that day. He built a school later, named it after his mother, for every child who suffers, and still dares to dream. He hired kids from shelters, paid them to study full-time, gave them uniforms and shoes, books, food, music, joy, and one rule only: try. Because he knew pain well, knew what hunger could kill, and what love could ignite. So he taught more than numbers. He taught what survival meant. One girl loved astronomy deeply. He bought her a telescope. Another liked writing poems secretly. He published her first book. They weren't students. They were sparks. Reporters came. Cameras rolled again. This time not for pity, but for progress, hope, revolution. He still wore old shoes, but now by choice. The president shook his hand. Magazine covers called him genius, but he smiled only once. When a small child whispered, "You're just like me, right?" He stands quietly these days, not seeking lights or praise, not chasing any more applause. He just keeps showing up for those still unseen. Every Friday, without fail, he mops the school floors, not because he has to, but because it reminds him where he came from. He walks the hallways slow, checks on every single classroom, not for dust or trash, but for tired eyes hiding, for kids who feel invisible. He tells them stories softly, of dirt, of hunger, of shame, then of strength, of choice, of how small sparks survive, even in darkest corners. He says, "You are not nothing. You are waiting to be seen. You are your own story." And for some, that's everything. Sometimes hope only needs words. He doesn't sell books yet. No big movie about him. But he changed more lives than most billionaires ever could, because he believed in one. So if you're still watching, if you're still wondering why we told you this, it's because someone out there needed this story today. Maybe you're mopping right now, or stacking shelves somewhere thanklessly. Maybe you're dreaming between shifts, too tired to write, live, breathe. But you're still here, fighting. And just like Eli did, you can rise. You will. Not for revenge or fame, but for peace, for meaning, for the child inside you. Because someone is watching silently, waiting to notice your light. And when they finally do, you'll realize one thing clearly. You were never truly invisible. So don't stop walking forward. Even if it's inch by inch, even if no one claps. Because the moment will come when the world notices you. If this story touched you, if it reminded you of someone, if it made you pause, then let's spread it together. One like, one share, one heart. And if you want more stories that move and matter, true tales of quiet strength, hit that subscribe button now. Join us every single week. We're building something different here. Not just drama or mystery, but stories that see you, that tell the untold ones, that give silence a voice. So thank you for watching.